South Africa, is it likely to benefit or not? That's the question we are asking. What will the difference be in Joe Biden's approach, and how can this benefit us economically? Joe Biden's win, that is. Africa and South Africa have hardly been on the American agenda during the Trump administration. Well, Herman Warren is an economist from the Corporate Networks Director for Africa, and he speaks to us now from Johannesburg. Herman, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you very much for your time. First and foremost, characterize for me what you think the next 2 months are going to look like in terms of world markets.
Well, the initial signals, and good afternoon to you and to everyone tuning in. The initial signals are encouraging. Whether it is the calm before the storm, we'll see. A lot of it will hinge on how the concession, hopefully at some point, takes place from Mr. Trump and his administration. I think on the positive side, at least looking at it from a South African perspective, markets were up at the end of the week, and the rand was strengthening. Yeah. But I think we shouldn't be lulled into a false sense of confidence by what we saw at the end of the week. We still have some road to travel on our way to January 20th, Inauguration Day, 2021.
Just reading in one of the Sunday papers, the Sunday Times, in fact, to be specific, one of the markets watchers there, David Shapiro, talking about how during the Donald Trump era, we hardly had any conversation. It was difficult, I think he put it, to speak to Donald Trump. With Joe Biden in now, there is going to be some conversation. But is that enough for South Africa and Africa in broad terms, that we have an ear of a president sitting in the White House? Is that enough?
I think that the likelihood is certainly higher. But to take a couple of steps back, I mean, we are still in the grips of you talked about, once in a century voter participation in the United States among eligible voters. We're in a once in a century pandemic, which has introduced demand and supply side shocks into the global economy. So the global economy this year will contract 5%. The U.S. economy, which is the largest economy in the world, will contract 4.6%. So to put that into context, that contraction, that loss of GDP, if you will, equates to 2 South African economies, just off of the South African economy. Now, moving it, and I'll come back to the United States, but moving out of the U.S. or North America into our particular region, Africa will experience its first recession in 25 years. All right, so the part of the world where we're based, where I am, where you are, as a region, will contract 4.4% this year. And that average obviously doesn't tell you the whole story, because as you begin to unpack it by different countries and so on, that rate will differ. And where we are in South Africa, we know that we're looking at around an 8% contraction. The focus of many leaders is on dealing with lives and livelihoods in their countries. And no doubt that will be a primary focus for the Biden administration. Yeah. He'll go about it, undoubtedly, differently from Trump, but his focus will be on trying to get the pandemic under control. And the last number I saw in the United States indicated there were over 128,000 new confirmed cases yesterday. Right? I think Texas alone has 1 million confirmed cases. So he's going to need to get that under control. His focus will also be on a stimulus package, again, to help people to deal with the livelihoods element, to make sure that companies stay afloat, that individuals can pay for food and rent and so on and so forth. And then, of course, this has been an incredibly fractious, poisonous kind of campaigning season leading to an election which hasn't been accepted yet. So he has to extend a hand to try to heal or breach across the political aisle, so to speak. So that is what he's going to be gripped with. A part of his program, and I'll try to bring it back to South Africa in particular, but a part of his program calls for $7 trillion worth of spend over a decade. In some key areas. So trying to reposition the U.S. economy to be carbon neutral, looking at things like renewable energy and electric vehicles, investing in infrastructure, investing in healthcare. It's a big number. It equates to about 3% of GDP, and it will be funded through reallocating resources and then also looking at tax increases. So it's likely that corporate tax rates go up, which might have an impact on where they direct investment. So FDI flow, which may have a negative impact on outbound direct investment, including in South Africa, and also through increased taxes on wealthier individuals, so households earning over $400,000. But in that policy platform and approach, if you will, are also opportunities. As one thinks about investing in infrastructure, there could be a dividend from that which flows to countries like South Africa, which can feed into that infrastructure mix, whether it's steel or manganese. As we think about renewable energy and electric vehicles, minerals such as copper come to the fore, platinum comes to the fore. As we think about one of the areas of continuation in terms of policy position, whether it's a Trump administration or what's likely to be a Biden administration, there's bipartisan support that China has to be confronted. China is viewed as a strategic competitor. Trump went about it very transactionally, very blunt, raising tariffs. Biden is much more of an institutionalist, much more of a multilateralist. He's going to seek to bring more kind of allies into the tent and perhaps a more strategic and less transactional approach. And that will also create opportunities for the region and specifically for South Africa. As companies look to diversify their supply chains, South Africa is well poised to take advantage of that set of conditions and the wider context.
Herman, final question to you, and very briefly, if you can. Sure. You spoke about opportunities, in particular for countries like South Africa. I just had a conversation with Bob Wekesa, Dr. Bob Wekesa at Wits University, and he says that South Africa perhaps has a nicer opportunity, if you like, than any other states on the continent, and that is that Joe Biden has a personal relationship with South Africa. He campaigned back in the 80s for the fall of apartheid. In your view, when will the opportune time be for South Africa to leverage that personal relationship with Joe Biden, or with the Biden administration, I should say?
Yesterday, as soon as the forecast was made by the major news outlets indicating that the lead that he had in those key states were unlikely to be met by Mr. Trump, then a congratulatory message should have been sent to Mr. Biden, President-elect, sooner rather than later is the short answer.
Wow, fantastic! Thank you very much for your time and your insights. Herman Warren is an economist at Corporate Network. Thanks indeed for your time.